Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Polyglot Perspective podcast, hosted by me, Taylor.
And I'm Lily. In today's episode, we'll be talking about studying linguistics in college, as well as careers in linguistics.
But before we get started, as always, we would really appreciate it if you could take a few seconds to subscribe to the podcast and our YouTube channel, as well as leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This would truly help us out a lot. And another reminder is that all of these podcast episodes are going to be available on our website at polyglotperspective.com. So please check them out. Thanks so much. And without further ado, please welcome our guest for episode 2 of season 3 on the Polyglot Perspective podcast, Polina.
Polina is a Russian university student studying linguistics. Polina created a student organization at her university to bring language enthusiasts together. Some of her hobbies include reading, watching TV series, and films in other languages, making videos, and running. She also likes to study English, Spanish, Norwegian, French, and Greek.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Polina. And at the start of each episode, we have all of the guests introduce themselves and the languages that they're currently learning. So please introduce yourself.
So, this is Russian. Всем привет. Я начну с русского, потому что это язык, на котором я говорю с самого детства, и на нем проще всего представиться. Мне 21 год, я люблю изучать иностранные языки и учусь на лингвистике. English. I have started learning English when I was very little because everyone in Russia does that. I think it's kind of fashionable to do so. And I've always known that I liked languages and I liked consuming media in other languages. So I started doing that quite a few years ago. And now I have C2 in English. And I've passed the test to have the certificate to prove that I know English quite well, as one might say. Spanish. También puedo hablar español. Empecé a estudiar español hace 2 años y ahora puedo decir que tengo B1 o B2 y estudio español en mi universidad. Norwegian. Pues jeg kan snakke norsk også. Det er et språk at jeg liker veldig godt. Jeg har to en norsk, og det er veldig vanskelig for meg å snakke norsk, men jeg liker å snakke dette språk. And this is French. Bonjour, je m'appelle Polina. J'aime français, and I guess that's it. And I can also say part in Greek. This is Greek. Yasu Melene Polina, Xero Anglica, Hispanica, Hellenica, que Rosikos, Meno sti Mosha. And that's it.
Wow, it's pretty great. I always love this section because Lily and I, we know some languages. We understand Spanish, Chinese, etc. But then Norwegian comes in, Greek comes in, and we're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I think it's a cool opportunity for us to just listen and sort of marvel at different languages.
Yeah, definitely just having this podcast, we get to hear a variety of languages that we never heard before. I haven't personally heard Norwegian before, so it was pretty interesting listening. Just to get to know you better, can we start off with you telling us about some tourist attractions, food, and special things about your city and your country?
Okay, yeah. Actually, this is something that I study at my university. We study how to speak about Russia and our cities to the people who want to learn more. So I hope I do a good job doing that, or else I won't get a good mark. But basically, Russia has a lot of different cultures. So it's not only Russian people, but also people from other cultures who live in this country and have been living here for a very long time. And I'm from a very small town, but now I live in Moscow. Here we have a lot of tourist attractions. They are awesome. Even the Red Square is a place that everyone has heard of, probably. It's a nice place to see architecture because it's incredible. And some of the buildings are quite worth visiting. And if we speak about food, it can be very different because we have different food from different cultures, but they are still all Russian. And all Russian people really like that food, for example. It's difficult to even say what it is that constitutes Russian food, but there are a few things that I would say are specifically Russian. First, we have a drink that's called kvass. And it's something like a beer, but it's not alcoholic, and it's made from bread. It's really tasty. We also have blini, which is like pancakes, but they are thin, and we add a lot of things to them. We put meat inside it or anything. Basically, we put like cottage cheese or something that we want in there. And it's something that Russians really like. And also, I would say borscht is something that Russians really enjoy, and we are fans of soups. So if you come to Russia, you will get a soup in all the places, because even our grandmothers always say like eat your soup all the time. So it's something that all Russians really appreciate.
Oh, that's so interesting. That sounded like a whole infomercial. Like you had that whole thing
Exactly.
prepared. That's crazy. Because I don't think we have like those classes in the United States. So that's pretty interesting. But you did a good job. I think you'll get good marks for that.
And do you have any things you would like to clarify? Any stereotypes that the media portrays or misrepresentation of Russian people?
Well, I think that a lot of people say that Russians are very negative, and it's certainly true in literature, for example, but in real life, of course, every person is different, and people in Russia can be different too. But nowadays, I would say that a lot of people are very open and open-minded, and especially in bigger towns, people try to speak English. If you are from England, for example, they try to help you. So I'd say that it's something that I would clarify. And of course, there are a lot of different people. Some people are very grumpy, but usually we like to help out and give a hand to other people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and in terms of the language learning portion, we haven't had anyone on the podcast that speaks either Norwegian or Greek yet, which we talked a little bit about earlier. So why did you choose to learn these specific languages?
Well, I really like languages that not a lot of people can understand, because it's quite fun to learn them and to understand things, but it's also difficult because we don't have many resources to study these languages. And I heard Norwegian when I was watching a TV series, Scam. I think a lot of people have heard about it. And when I heard this language, I was so in love with the pronunciation, with the melody of the language, that I decided that I have to study it, but there aren't a lot of resources, so it was a very difficult process. But I'll say that I'm in love with this country and with the language, and I hope that one day I will be able to visit it and to just use all the knowledge that I have of the language. And Greek, well, in our university, we have courses of Greek language, and I just wanted to try it out. And unfortunately, I had a very bad experience, but I still really like the sound of the language, and I like the culture of the language, because they have a very long history and a lot of books in Greek and a lot of songs in Greek. So I'm interested in the culture, but right now I kind of stopped learning it because I did have a very interesting situation with my teacher of Greek, but I think I'll recover and try to pick up the language again.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And when did you start becoming interested in language learning, and what intrigued you about language learning?
I'm not sure, but I think that one of the things that is very important to me is to be able to learn about different perspectives and look at life from different perspectives. For example, right now, when we have a lot of different things going on, it's interesting to read, for example, news in Norwegian and then in Russian and in English, and to see different perspectives, because of course they paint a different picture of life. And also, I really like the sounds of languages. So, for example, Norwegian sounds this way and Spanish sounds a different way, and you kind of switch your personality, because, for example, Spanish people are quite energetic and loud. And so you kind of pick up that personality too, and you change your personalities based on language that you're learning. And of course, culture. I really like reading books. You can see it here probably. And I like reading in different languages in the original, because there is always something that you cannot translate perfectly into other languages. For example, reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez in original is something that is just so incredible, and it gives me so much inspiration to study languages, to just learn about other cultures and about other perspectives on the world.
Definitely, that is the case. Google searches are very different depending on which language you use.
Yeah, I think I definitely relate in terms of like different perspectives, because before I started learning any languages, all the media I would consume is like American media or like British media and stuff that's in English, right? And that's all told through a similar like lens and perspective. But then once I started reading like Chinese news articles, Korean news articles, then I was like, wow, they have definitely a different spin on the same exact event, which I think can definitely broaden your mind and make you think about things differently. You also mentioned that you created a student organization at your university. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why you decided to create it?
Yeah, it's called Accent. I was trying to look for a name that would really stick, and it did. And now every time someone says Accent, they immediately think of the students' organization. So it was a great decision to do so. But I decided to create a students' organization about a year ago. And it was because I started to think that in our university, we don't have this organization where students who like to learn languages can actually find help or find information. And we have a lot of students who study different languages. So I decided to do that. And we kind of focus on the idea that to learn a language, you have to study by yourself, because even if you have a tutor or a teacher, you cannot really spend a lot of time with them. It's still up to you to practice the language, to listen to the language, or to read in it. And so we try to encourage people to learn by themselves, and we try to create some guides for them or to provide some information that will allow them to study by themselves. And we also try to make people interested in learning languages and try to say that it's easy, it's interesting, it's fascinating, because it is something that really helps in life and broadens your horizons. And now we have 45 people working in this organization. We have podcasts, videos, a lot of different media platforms that we post on. We have events, we have speaking clubs, we watch films together, read books in different languages. We have around 8 languages right now, like English, Spanish, French, German, of course, Korean, Chinese, and Japanese. And we also try to find students from other universities as well, because like 2 months ago, we started to collaborate with students from Moscow State University, because they also have organizations for students. And now we have more than 1,000 followers who learn with us and who participate in our events.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I feel like if I had that at the university that I'm going to, I would definitely join as well. That seems like something that's really interesting.
That seems amazing. I don't think my college has this, because if they did, I would join it. But that seems like a lot of planning and a lot of coordination that has to go into making an organization like this. So, how do you really handle it all?
Well, I have the best team ever. I have people who are very reliable, who are good at what they do. And for me, it's not about what I do, but about what they do. And I trust them completely. I can disappear for a month and they will still be working, they will still be creating. And I think that it shows that the management is kind of good, because it's about the team, it's not about me, it's about how they organize their work. And so yeah, I think it's all the things goes to them, not to me at all.
Yes, that's definitely true. I like how you mentioned that because, yeah, at the end of the day, like people always look at like the founder or like the person in charge of an organization and say, it's all you, you did everything. But it's really not. It's about the entire team. Everyone works together. And like you said, everyone does their part in making sure that the team is still running and the organization is still running, even when you're on a hiatus or, you know, you have different like circumstances and you can't be there. Yeah. And another thing that you mentioned as well was that you enjoy self-studying languages. And since you have studied a lot of different languages, can you mention which languages you self-studied and how you self-studied them?
Yeah, I think that with Spanish, I kind of grasped the idea of how to study languages by yourself. And basically, I studied Spanish for 24 weeks every single day. And I tried to plan out what I should do, what resources I should use. And basically, it works. Turns out that if you study every single day and you study well, then you can actually learn a language. And we actually have a study guide for people who want to learn a language by themselves. I can show it to you if we can do that.
Oh,
Oh,
sure.
yeah. You want to share your
Yeah.
screen? We can do that.
Yeah, I need a second. I'll just,
Oh, you have the physical version. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Our university helped us to print it out and we give it to students. And it looks like this.
Oh,
And you can
cool.
see it. And here you can actually write down your plans for studying, what you want to do in a month, in a week. And it's in the colors of our organization. You can write down your goals here on the first page and just plan out what you're going to do. And this is something that I came up with because it helped me to learn languages. And basically, I just try to use all the things that I can, like all the resources, like listen to podcasts in the morning, read a book, learn words during the day, I don't know, study some textbooks. And I try to plan out in order to use all the resources that I can. And basically, that's it. Like, it's only hard work. There isn't a pill or a secret to do that. You just study every single day.
Yes, I definitely agree. Consistency is super important when learning languages. And like you said, you figured out that when you study every single day for Spanish, for instance, that you actually improved a lot in the language. Also, can we mention that the study guide was super cool? That's super cool. Yeah, I was not expecting you to like whip out like a physical version of it. So that was really interesting. Yeah, and it seems like you're super dedicated to your organization and your whole team is dedicated enough to create a physical version of that. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I have a tattoo with the name of our organization, so I think it's with me for the rest of my life.
Beautiful. And are you selling those guides online?
No, we just give them out for free to anyone who's interested.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you also mentioned that you were a linguistics major. For anybody that doesn't know that's listening, can you explain what this major entails and what kind of classes you have to take?
Yeah. So I study linguistics, and my program is called Intercultural Studies. So we not only learn what makes up a language, but we also learn about different cultures. And the linguistics part is usually theory of phonetics, theory of grammar, lexicology, stuff that is connected with the language. And we learn two languages, English and Spanish for me. And some study also German and French. Um, what we do in our intercultural studies classes, we take a country and we study its customs, we study how to interact with people, what is different, what's the same. And we have studied the United States, the UK, and I think also Canada. And so basically when we graduate, we can work with people from these cultures, and we will know, for example, that it's okay if, I don't know, someone from Spain comes late, because that's something that is normal for them. So that we are aware of all the little things that are important when dealing with people from different cultures.
That's really interesting. I like how you also mentioned not only like the linguistics portion, but also the cultural portion, because like you said, that's super important in terms of interacting with people of different cultures. And since a lot of people are probably watching and people that are interested in language learning consider a major in linguistics when they go to college and beyond. So what are some pros and cons of majoring in linguistics in your opinion, and how has your general experience been like?
I would say that there are different programs, of course, because I know that some study linguistics very closely. They read actual works of scientists. For me, it's more about learning a language just to be able to interact with people. In our program, we do that more than studying theory. But it's really difficult to study theory of linguistics. I have to say it. I don't know why, but they write it in such a language that it's just very difficult to understand. And if you really feel like this field is for you, then you will be on cloud nine. But for those who are not actually into like learning why we have a subject there and an object here, it's not something that would be enjoyable because it's just meticulous work, and it's not about actually knowing the language, but knowing the parts that constitute a language. So I think that it really depends on whether you enjoy it or not. And even for those who want to study linguistics, you can actually watch Crash Course Linguistics. That's something that can show you whether you are actually interested in it, because that's something that we study every single day.
Funny that you mentioned that. I was actually watching like a crash course linguistics a couple of weeks ago because I'm applying to college soon, and I was like, I don't know what to major in, and I was thinking linguistics seems pretty cool, but then yeah, like you said, it dives a lot into like theory and like different aspects that I wasn't really aware about.
Oh, also just to add too, I am minor plussing in general linguistics, and I totally understand what Paulina said about it being very theory, but I would say it's very scientific as well. So when I got into my introduction to linguistics class, it was basically telling us it's the science of studying language, how it is. It really dives deep into syntax. You've probably seen the syntax trees, right? And phonetics as well. So just for those people that are going into maybe linguistics, you got to keep that in mind. It's not only about learning the language, it's also the very scientific stuff.
Yeah, it's like learning the science behind the language. Which I mean, I think is pretty cool too. But if you came in probably thinking this is going to be how to learn languages or this is going to be language learning, you might be a little surprised. So I think it's always good to do research before. And personally, what do you think are the greatest things that you've learned from your linguistics major?
I would say that we study a lot of things that are related with culture. We study history, we study culture of different countries. We study tourism also. I don't know why, but we do. And it's very interesting to learn about different parts of the world, especially now because for the past few years we couldn't actually travel. And learning about different cultures shows you different perspectives, and you learn a lot of fun facts that you can tell at parties. And you also become interested in different authors, in different artists, and you basically study everything because language is culture too. And we do that a lot, but it also depends on the teachers that you have. Because some teachers really put in a lot of work to try and show you the best parts of the culture, the worst parts of the culture. And there are some teachers who just say this country is bad and this country is also bad. So it does depend, but you have to do your own research too.
And the big question, if you could go back and choose a major again, would you still pick linguistics or would you choose a different major?
Well, to be honest, my mother chose a major for me because I was so depressed after exams. We have like the worst exams in Russia, and I didn't want to go anywhere. And she chose a major for me, and I really enjoy it. And I have learned a lot at my university, but I think that I wouldn't go to university at all, even though I've learned a lot of different skills, and I'm very grateful for them. And they have changed the trajectory of my life forever, I'd say. But I don't think that university is for me because it's a lot of scientific work, and I'm very interested in practice and hands-on experience. So I think that I needed a gap year or something like that and not go to university perhaps.
What would you do in that gap year?
I think that I would travel more and I would try to learn what I actually like to do in life because it's cool. We are so focused on studying all the subjects that we have. We're focused on preparing for our exams, and we don't get the time to learn about what we actually want to do in life. And in Russia, it's not common to take a gap year. Like it's something that is frowned upon. People don't do it because your family will judge you, will say that you don't know anything about life. So I wish we had a culture of taking the time off to just think about what you want to do in life. But my university has a lot of different things that allow you to learn more about yourself. And we have different events, different classes for everyone just to try and do things that are different. And I think that university is not about a major that you receive, but it's also about new experience and learning about you. So I think it's not for everyone, but if your university is great, it will help you to learn what you want to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another question about your major, linguistics. What are some common careers that students of linguistics majors can go into?
If I speak about my program, we can basically do anything. We can teach languages, we can become translators, we can work for tourist companies. I think these are the three things that are very common in Russia to do after a linguistics degree. But also you can work in media because you know a lot about culture and you can write in different languages. So you can do that also, I think.
What are you personally interested in pursuing after college?
Well, I'm not sure. That's a very existential question, but I would like to do more things that are created with art, that are connected with art and creating maybe music or something that is connected with media. Because I realized in university that I really like things that are connected with communication and with art. So I would like to do that.
Yeah, I love that. It's like very intersectional between a bunch of different disciplines. Also, let's draw it back because you mentioned earlier, it got me interested, that Russian exams are different than other exams in different countries. Can you talk a little bit about the Russian education system and the exams you take?
Yeah, well, it's probably going to sound very depressing, but our exams are not creative at all. You have to just learn the structure to pass it. And it also depends on the test that you get during your exam day. So you might receive very easy questions, or your questions might be very difficult. And you can never be sure what you're going to get. And it's difficult to prepare even though you know the topics that you're supposed to learn. For example, maths exams are very difficult, and we also separate them into two parts, into an easy part, into a difficult part, and people do not actually get the time to even finish up their exam because it's so difficult, and you have to like count a lot and do stuff like that a lot. And I would say that a lot of teachers and parents put a lot of pressure on students. They say that if you fail your exam, you won't be able to do anything in your life and that you're a failure. And students are told that every single day, so they cannot really prepare well because they're under so much stress. And we even had like instances of people just dropping out, just stopping studying, maybe even doing something worse than that. And it's just so difficult and weird because, of course, it's not the end of your life. You can just retake an exam, but people put a lot of pressure on students. So that's why it's difficult, I'd say.
Wow. So you can retake the exam, or is it just like a one and go?
Yeah, you can retake an exam anytime you want. You can do that at like 50 if you want to. There's no like
50 times.
That's a lot.
I feel like that'd be worse than taking it like once, just like taking the same thing over. What sort of like subjects are tested in the exam?
Basically, we have an exam in all the subjects that we study, so around 10 or 15. And you take 4 exams that you want to apply to university with. Usually, everyone has to pass Russian and maths, and then also something that is connected with the things that you would like to study further at university. I passed social studies, history, and English because I wanted to apply to linguistics. And if you want to do something else, you just take different subjects.
Oh, wow. I feel like the closest thing in the United States to that would probably be like AP exams. Yeah, the big one would be like SAT, ACT, but in terms of like specific subject tests, because you mentioned like 10 to 15 subjects, that would probably be APs. But yeah, we can also, for our standardized tests to get into college, we can take the SAT, ACT as many times as possible. But the more you take it, the more it is like frowned upon. Like, why are you taking it 20 times, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's similar with the different subjects. For example, in China, they have Gaokao, and it's very, very intense and stressful. It sounds like Russia's situation where the people say you have to get into a good university or else you're a failure.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that might just be like a theme throughout certain Asian countries as well, because I've heard similar stories in like Japan and Korea. And I think it's just interesting how different countries and cultures treat education differently and how society looks upon education. Because, like you mentioned, when a student takes a gap year in Russia, it's generally frowned upon. Whereas in the United States, I feel like taking a gap year is much more common now in college. Still, I don't think people would be like jumping for joy if someone took a gap year, but I think like it's less frowned upon than in other countries.
Yeah, and I would like to add that Russia is sometimes said to be a country that is like divided into two parts because from one perspective, we are like Chinese people, for example, because we're close to these countries like Japan, China, and we kind of take a part from their culture, but we're also very close to Europe. So we take a part from that culture, and it's like a mix of different cultures, and that's why sometimes it's very confusing.
Yeah. And before we conclude this interview, could you teach us your favorite word or phrase in any of the languages that you're learning?
I wanted to teach you how to say a Russian greeting, just because it's very confusing to a lot of people. It's "Здравствуйте." So yeah, I will say it a bit slower, just so
Okay.
people can repeat it. So the first part is "Zdra."
Dra.
Dra.
Yeah. Then "Stvuj."
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I can repeat it like "Здравствуй."
Wait.
Oh my gosh. We gotta study Russian next, Taylor.
Yeah, I know. Russian next. Zdrav, is that what you said?
Yeah. Then "Здравствуй."
Zdravstvu?
Yeah. Ите. Здравствуйте. Ите.
Itya.
Yeah. And the entire phrase is "Здравствуйте."
Zdravitya. Okay, that
And
was
what
so
does that
bad.
mean?
So it means hello.
Oh wow. All that for hello.
Yeah. If that means hello, then wow. Learning Russian would probably be very difficult. Yeah, but thank you so much for teaching us that. Lily, do you want to give it a go?
Oh my god, you want to embarrass me now? Wait, say it one more time.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Yeah, you're close. We can also say "Привет," which is a
Привет?
shorter and
Привет?
perfect.
Okay,
So much
I think we can
easier.
say
Okay,
that.
привет.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
basically hi in Russian.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I like how like hi and hello sound very different. That's pretty cool. And thank you so much for teaching us your favorite word, or a word that you'd like us to know. Sorry if we totally butchered that, but learn something new every day. And yeah, that about wraps it up for today's podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning about your language learning journey. Do you have anything else to add at the end?
Yeah, I just want to add that I really like your podcast, and it's something that a lot of people should listen to, even if they are not interested in learning languages, because languages open up doors that would have been closed otherwise. So, yeah, thank you very much for the podcast. I think it's something that makes our world a nicer and more interesting place.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that's it for today's podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.